Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We have some things to discuss, some races evolving in the East and West, the GM meetings in Florida. But as always, we start with the pre-show. And, I wonder what it's going to be, Russ. Go ahead.
Well, we're like day 8 of this hostage situation. And supposedly in 20 minutes, Aaron Rodgers will lead everybody on Pat McAfee's show, which I had zero interest in watching or seeing any tweets from. It's just gotten old. They actually interviewed on ESPN Mike Tannenbaum, who said when Favre got traded for. Now, again, it was in August. He had no demands. Brady had fewer demands than Aaron Rodgers. Like, Aaron Rodgers looks really bad for this. I don't care if he wants to get guys paid. He's got guys on ESPN now basically saying, well, these are upgrades for the Jets. Not everybody's an upgrade. The Jets had a really good receiving core. And if they bring in Cobb and they have to cut Elijah Moore or trade him for a draft pick, it's not good. Everybody's saying, Garrett Wilson's the number one. But when they bring in Lazar, is it Lazar? Is that Lazard, yeah. If they bring him in and that's Rodgers' favorite guy, are you still telling me Garrett Wilson's the number one target, even though he's the best guy in the team? Probably not. So all these things kind of are all askew, and I think the thing that's bothering me the most, and I'm sure Kevin has dealt with this for a million years as a fan of the Lions, is everybody knows what's best for the Jets in other markets. They all know. It's so clear to them. And it's like, listen, these, in these other markets, they don't know what it's like to deal with New York. Jet fans are tough on quarterbacks. You lose this draft capital, and Rodgers decides after a year, I know I signed a 2-year deal, but I'm kind of done. That could kill them. And so they don't get to the Super Bowl. Look, if they got to the Super Bowl, I would say it's worth it because the Jets haven't even been to the Super Bowl since I was 5 years old. But that's still a big if. I know I've talked to a lot of people who don't think the Jets will get there, even with Rodgers. So
maybe they'll get there and play against my Lions.
Maybe. That would be unbelievable. I would come up. I would watch the game over your house if that happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would have to come in because I'm going to have a house full. It'll be great. All my family would be here. It would be awesome. But anyway, I've got a little beef to talk about here that I think relates to all sports. And you've heard me speak about these issues before. But the Detroit Tigers, at least it's been reported, have said to Miguel Cabrera that they're very concerned about him playing in the World Baseball. Is it Classic? World Baseball Classic?
Yes.
So, but anyway, they want him to limit his at bats to one a game or a couple a game and all that kind of stuff. And my feeling on this is I guess they've said the same thing to Rodriguez, the pitcher. Now with Rodriguez, I get that. He signed a long-term contract, and then last year, cited personal issues and couldn't come in and pitch, and so he really sort of let him down. And for that reason, I get they're saying, hey, you got to have limited involvement because you cost us a year on the contract last year. But with Cabrera, future Hall of Famer, I think you go to him and say whatever you want to do. Cabrera, I mean, he's going out, this is his last season. They're paying him a lot of money, I get it, but look, he's a Hall of Famer and everything else. And just like we saw, we see NHL teams just sort of asking players what they want to do. In Detroit, they dealt with Nick Lidstrom saying, tell us how much money you want and we'll give it to you. Some guys are just owed that. I think Cabrera is owed that. Sure. There should be no limitations on him. They should say whatever you want to do, Miggy. And if it turns out that he overdoes it and ends up on the the injured list again, then so be it. They're not counting on him. This team is not going to the World Series.
He's the franchise right now. He's the face. You're right. I mean, you're right about that.
Yeah, they just owed him, and really he's not. I mean, he's lost his power. He can still hit, but he's not a 300.
When we were there, we went crazy every time he got up, though.
Yeah, absolutely. He's still popular. So I think they owe him this, and I just wish they would have handled this better. Now, I hope the reporting on this is accurate. I think it is, but if that's the case, but I don't understand it. And I would say that if Mr. Ilitch Mike Ilitch was still alive, I don't think this would have happened.
Well, I mean, two different teams in two different situations. I mean, I since the Tigers, and okay, they're not expected to be a challenger in the AL Central, but and this is his last season. So, I don't understand why they would put up all these sort of roadblocks when it comes to Cabrera. Joe, following the Yankees, they shut down any chance of Nestor Cortez pitching in the World Baseball Classic when he came up with a slightly pulled hamstring. They're like, we need you for the rotation starting in late March, and this is before Rodon and before it was after Montas, but before Rodon and before somebody else went down. So, I mean, to my mind, I'm not going to devote 1 second of my life watching the friggin' World Baseball Classic. It's useless, but I understand why Major League Baseball is pumping. But these teams have to think about themselves and not the individual wants of the player.
But Mike, we can't lose to Canada.
Well, let Joe answer it first.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you addressed Joe, but I'm just going to say we can't lose to Canada. Come on, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I mean, we throttled Canada 12-1, so there is that. But
Right.
but no. To me, it's at the wrong time of year. You can't have this tournament in spring training when teams are going up for the season. You got to do it after the season, and just listen. Treat it like World Championships with hockey. If your team's out of the playoffs, go play in the World Baseball Classic. If you're still in the playoffs, well, okay, cool. You get to go maybe win a World Series. Like that's the trade-off.
Yeah, I like that better.
I see the point in doing it, and
It should be like the World Championships in hockey.
Yeah.
It's like the NIT. You can't compete for the championship, so you can play in the other tournament. So
Right.
Now, one last thing quickly, because I think it's tomorrow the NCAA tournament starts. And, in the past, I have been into it. I mean, I'm not into regular season college basketball. When the tournament comes around, I'm always watching it. And I don't know about you, but I've sort of lost touch with the tournament this year, or at least the last couple of years. I mean, maybe it's the fact, Syracuse stinks now. Krzyzewski's gone from Duke. It doesn't hold my attention, and I've never really been into the brackets. It doesn't really hold my attention the way it has in the past. Joe, I mean, go around the horn here. I mean, Joe, does it matter to you or as much as it did a few years ago?
It's different for me now because my attention's focused on other stuff. I mean, I'm hockey like 99% of the time, so it's kind of lost out of my attention span, and it's definitely different than it used to be. But I mean, I don't know. For me, it's different because I'm just not locked in on it. Like me in high school and college, and even post college, like that was. I mean, you would take time off of work to go to watch the first couple rounds of the tournament because you just spend all day watching basketball. I mean, you do brackets and stuff, but it didn't matter because the games were fun to watch. Now I'm just kind of not invested in any of the teams anymore. I'm not, I don't have a favorite school that I'm pulling for. I used to be a Syracuse person, after I started going to my own college, I stopped caring about Syracuse. So, it's fun to watch, but I don't know. It's a lot different for me now than it used to be.
Yeah, I'm a Frozen Four guy.
My claim to fame, and this is, I'm sorry, guys. I'm whatever.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm a Frozen Four guy, and nobody in Philly's in it. First time in 30 years, so.
Yeah, that's true too. Go ahead, Gav.
Well, I mean, I'm just a sports fan in general, so my interest in it, I can really get behind Joe's opinion on it. I think over time it's probably lost a little bit of luster for me, and I'm not sure why that is. But there's so much going on. Maybe that's something. But I could easily find myself getting caught up in it, depending on what the storylines are. But my attitude about sports is different, certainly different than Mike's, where sometimes, like I say all the time, sometimes a movie is just a movie. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a movie. And so sporting events are like that. I tune in, and what Russ was saying yesterday about his time's valuable. My time is not valuable at all. I watch sports all the time.
Well, you suggested my time's not valuable either. So
your time really isn't valuable because you watch as much sports as I do, and a lot of times we end up watching hockey games that turn out to be total duds, and we don't leave them. Well, Mike does, but you and I don't leave them. We watch them, and so it's sort of like the tournament. But I'm right with Joe in saying for some reason I'm not I got to get into it. I got to take a few punches before I'm into the fight. And that's where I am now with this basketball tournament, where before I was right with Joe. I'm planning, okay, I'm going to watch this game on Saturday and everything else. And now, I'm sort of waiting and getting in with the unwashed masses. I'm not there in the beginning. I got to get into it.
There have to be some underdogs. Like if there's an underdog that wins, then I'm following that team. Like if it's a 15 or 16 seed that wins the first game, I'm going to watch the next game of that team. I am all for sports on live sports on during the day, during work days though. That's something I love. I love, as we all do, right, Kev? It's like we're home.
That is a great thought. There's nothing better. I've said for years. I actually told this to Gary Bettman. He laughed, but I said if we're up to me, we would play NHL games on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10:45 a.m. That would be ideal for me.
We had that in the bubble, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well,
AHL has some 11 o'clock games occasionally.
Yeah. I had to explain to him why 10:45, and I said, well, because I cover them, and you need writing time. So the game would get over, 1:45. You got to interview, then you got to write, but you got to beat the rush hour coming home.
Right.
So So anyway, I think 10:45 would be strategically located on our schedules.
I do have a really funky claim to fame. I won a bracket tournament on ESPN. I was one of the 20 winners, I guess. There were 20 winners, but this was in the very early days, like really early days of the internet, when there was hardly anybody on there. And I joined a bracket, and they were the top 20 winners got to test a device that was not being used yet in television. You know what that device was?
The Nielsen box.
Nope. A TiVo. So I won a TiVo from ESPN. We were the first people that had a TiVo anywhere. We were like just blown away. This is unbelievable. This is so cool. We remember that feeling of like the DVR concept of like the whole thing. But yeah, just like that. That's my great memory of this tournament. I didn't know anything about it, but I somehow won. I don't know how I did, but I did.
Okay, let's start the show.
Anyway, here we go. I have no idea what.
Oh, you follow me.
Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, March 15th, 2023.
I'm Michael Agello, and I checked out the Best Picture Oscar winner, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, yesterday, and boy, did it suck.
I'm Joe Yarden from Bleacher Report. I watched The Banshees of Inisherin, and I loved it.
You know who I am. You know my voice. I don't need to say.
I'm Kevin Allen, and I just talked to a friend of mine who went and saw the same movie or watched the same movie Mike did. Said, "My gosh, that was interesting."
Wow, I thought it was an absolutely awesome movie, Mike. I'm Eckland. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast and HockeyBuzz.com. You should also watch Daisy Jones and the Six on Amazon.
Yeah, that's a good show.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you guys watched that one?
Yes, very good.
Yes.
Really like it.
Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Oh my gosh.
I will say about the Banshee movie, Joe, I was fascinated by the movie. I watched it, and of course, I liked all the actors in it too. But I did want to email the writer of that movie as soon as it was over and say, because it was advertised as a dark comedy. I just wanted to ask him, like, where was the comedy? Like I get it, and it's just a fascinating movie. But when they crossed the line is when they killed the donkey. I'm just sorry.
Kids are animals. Kids are animals. I cannot. I'll turn the movie off the second time.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Anyway, we got a lot to get to, and I have not been on here for a long time. I really very much appreciate you guys holding the fort. My son had surgery, and it went really well. He's still recovering, but I was with him. I've been with him like 24/7, basically taking care of him, making sure he's okay. And yes, and then this weekend we had a pipe explode and take out the whole middle of the house. So yesterday, after my son's surgery was on Monday, yesterday after the surgery, I'm trying to keep him calm and sleeping in bed while I have two dogs with me in my little office, and people are demolitioning the house. So yeah, it's been a day. It's been a day and a half. It's been a week, but I'm really happy to be back. And thanks for all the nice messages you guys sent me. I appreciate that very much. Anyway, let's get back to fun things. I'd love to talk about hockey for a bit. So, and I want to brag because, I just want to start with a brag, a humble brag here for me because my Buzztron, takes a lot of heat every year for its predictions abilities. But so far this year, it's been going 10 nights. It's been going 10 nights right now. 7 of those I picked more winners than losers. 2 of those I tied winners and losers, and 1 I picked more losers than winners. It is currently 60 correct and 24 wrong on the season, which is which I think is pretty darn good. Like,
well, all I can suggest is go on FanDuel.
I know that's what I said.
You should.
I don't believe in betting in hockey. I don't want to have that kind of like extra thing. I like watching hockey as it is, but I think that I hope someone's making money off this. I hope somebody else is using this because it's last night we went 6-3. Not only that, it's predicted crazy upsets. It had Montreal last night winning, which it had Detroit beating Boston. Kevin, I mean, just this past week.
Both days or just one day?
The one day, but had Boston winning the other one. It was right on both of them.
It had Buffalo beating Toronto,
which is right, and it did, and they did. There have been some crazy things that I'm always shocked about, So with upsets, it seems to be very, very good. I mean, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Detroit probably has owned Boston in Detroit for many years, Kevin.
No, not really. No, I mean that's a good. If you had that one, I think that's a good one because the Red Wings have not played well. They've had all kinds of trouble, but Boston has been struggling. Joe Haggerty just wrote a story that I read where he said what's wrong with the Bruins, and he wrote that prior to what happened last night. So.
Yes. So the projected standings, of course, change all the time right now. And right now, it has the 2 wild cards in the East being Pittsburgh and Florida. That's what it's projecting out to be.
Which I think it's going to be.
Which it very well could be, but it's had that for the whole time. And that's been remember I had Buffalo briefly, but if you also remember, my wife put all the home and away teams reversed when she first put it. She first was putting things in, so we had to scrap the first 2 days.
What happened to the Islanders?
I know the Islanders fell out. They're up and down. I mean, everybody in the East right now doesn't seem to want to. No one seems to really want to take it except for Florida. Pittsburgh really has it. Like Pittsburgh's in basically.
And Florida has the most home games. That's going to still help.
They have a really easy schedule and they've got a lot of home games. And that really does behoove them. But in the West, it changes. It's changing constantly. And right now, I think it's got. I forget who it is, but I'll look it up for you guys. But yeah, it's been
Nashville.
It does.
Right now, Russ. The funny thing is, right now Nashville has the least amount of games, and they're 4 points behind. They have 3 games in hand on Winnipeg, and they're 4 points behind.
Yeah, I get it.
Now,
they're not making it.
They're not making it because they've stripped that franchise bare. But right now, they're winning.
But you know what? I mean, they've got guys. They've got guys that can play though. Some of these young kids can play.
I'm sorry. We just talked about it. If you win 4 or 5 games in a row, you're always sort of in it.
I don't know. Yeah. Saros has been playing dynamite hockey for the last month and a half, though.
But Joe, bet on him on FanDuel. I'm not. I wouldn't bet on UC Saros if he was the last goalie on earth.
Actually, it doesn't have Nashville in the playoffs right now. I was looking at it right now. It has Winnipeg and Seattle as the 2 wildcard teams. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's been kind of a fascinating. I mean, the Islanders still have over the last 10 games among the playoff teams. They have the second best record.
Yeah.
They've lost their last 2, but. They've actually played, pretty well. And, there's a lot of ups and downs that go into it. I saw Nashville play last night on television. That game was in Nashville. But, Saros has been, and that's what they talked about on TV is how good he's been. And, historically, he's always had a terrific save percentage, which allows the team to play a little more wide open, which they need to do because they're not a great offensive team. So, but another interesting story is the Red Wings, the opponents just keep allowing them to hang around. They should be mathematically eliminated by now. They haven't played well at all, but they're still like on the outside edge. I think there are still 7 points or maybe it's 6 or 7. I've lost track. 7 points. Yeah. So, I mean, they're still kind of in the race.
They're still there. And this is not abnormal for the Predators, Kev. We've watched them closely. This is what they do. They are one of the more exciting teams in the league to follow as a fan because they always seem to stay in it and they battle. And the more you take away from them, the better they seem to get. And this has happened before with them at the deadline. They've gotten in the playoffs after they've sold.
Speaking of the Predators, though, I mean, this is worth kind of discussing because I think it's kind of fun. Like if there ever is a way to transition to your next general manager, and I don't know whether this was planned or it was accidental, but the Predators seem to have done it incredibly well. The Red Wings television showed what happened because Barry Trotz has been going to the games,
right?
And of course he's up there. And David Poile came over to him and hugged him, and they put it up on the big board, and everybody stood and gave a standing ovation. So was it for Trotz? Was it for Poile? Unclear, but it doesn't matter. Now they created kind of a marketing bonanza by doing that. And again, I have no idea whether it was planned or not, but it was really remarkable, the reaction of the fans to the guy of 41 years consecutive general manager as a general manager of 2 franchises, welcoming the guy that's going to replace him. It was pretty neat.
I loved it too. And Kevin, if it wasn't planned, it felt like it definitely played into Trotz's decision this past summer. That it was. I don't know how much they talked about it, but he obviously loved being in Nashville.
I think it was discussed. I don't know this for sure because they've played that close to the vest, but we talked about that very possibility. Last summer, because he was going. If you remember the story, just so people can refresh, his daughter was starting a business. In Nashville. She had lived and had stayed in Nashville even when he had coached elsewhere. And so he said, this is what he said, I'm going back to help my daughter with the business and to get things rolling. And she had to make some purchases and he was going to help. And then when that started to happen, we had started to hear that maybe he was going to rejoin the Nashville Predators as the heir apparent.
Yeah, his daughter is on Instagram and really interesting too. Like if you can find his daughter on Instagram, she's a pretty amazing person. She does some cool things that she does. Well, and she's head of a lot of communities down there too. She's in the LGBT community. She's really something. She's really something special.
Remember, the talk was that he wanted to go to an original 6 team, and that sort of dropped by the wayside when he took this job with the Preds. Russ, you said you had breaking news.
Yeah, the Bally's has filed for bankruptcy, so that's 12 NHL teams that are involved, like 46 teams overall. They're going to basically wipe out $8 billion in debt. Now they're going to keep operating, but clearly nobody's getting paid, or if they did, they got paid already. And then the last.
It's by the way, still Sinclair. They've actually sent out notes on.
They're saying Bally's on the app, so I'm just saying what it is. But it really is Sinclair that owns them. But people know it is Bally's. But at any rate, $8 billion in debt sort of going to get wiped out. But they are going to keep operating, so who knows what.
What's the coolest thing about Sinclair, guys?
They used to carry Rush Limbaugh.
No. The dinosaurs at the pumps. Have you ever
is that that's not the same group, is it?
I think it is.
No,
Really?
we're talking about Sinclair Oil. That's
oil,
different.
yeah.
I thought they were all part of the same.
No,
that's different.
Well, let's take that news to what Gary Bettman talked about today, Joe, because at the close, I think it was the close of the GM meetings, he teased the amount of the cap for next year and the following year, and obviously that's going to be connected to whether the escrow is going to be paid off. Now, I don't know how that's possible if they're not going to get the money from Sinclair, but we don't know if that's the case or not. That's all.
They've already gotten the money from Sinclair.
They've got some of it.
Some of it. There's no way they got paid in full.
No.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's refresh everyone's memory a little bit too, and talk about what we said at the time. So, at one point, Gary Bettman was optimistic that things were going to be better than they had originally projected, and we were going to have a little bump, or maybe even, I don't want to call it significant, but I think they were talking about $3 or $4 million.
Yes.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Like he said this on like a Tuesday. Right. And then at the was it the All-Star, or when did he then
it was
say?
It was at the Board of Governors.
Board of Governors meeting. All of a sudden he was saying, well, no, it may be only $1 million. At that time, what I said, and everybody agreed, was he's negotiating for something, because that's the way the NHL and the PA work. They want something to get something. And I said he's negotiating. And now with what he said at this I'm totally convinced this is just a negotiation.
It sounds like it too.
I'm guessing we're going to see an increase because whatever it is, the players are going to go along.
Yeah, my only counter is, so if there's an increase, but escrow is increased, and unless they make a lot more money in the next year or two, it's just like it's the same. It's not going to matter. It's just window dressing then.
Yeah, but they are going to make more money.
Okay.
You know, they're going to, you know, everybody's going to raise ticket prices a little bit. They're going to, you know, increase the cost of signage, and you know, he wouldn't do it.
I'm just saying, but that's the game they're playing.
Oh yeah, no, it is a game. A game is, and it's just all part of it.
Well, Joe, I mean, what it sounds like is that this is an opening salvo to Marty Walsh, the new head of the PA. It's like, okay, we're sort of laying the groundwork here. We'd like to, but I have to talk to Marty Walsh about this. So now he puts the onus on him, and they're playing Bettman's playing the game that he wants to play in this scenario. Yeah,
it's extending an olive branch with a handful of thorns kind of thing, where you know, where you're saying like, hey, you know, we really want the cap to go up, but we're gonna need your help on this, and you know, if you could, you know, double the amount of escrow that comes out, then we could really see the cap go up. But it's on you guys to get it done, or else, you know, your guys aren't gonna get paid, and gee, that'd be a real shame if they didn't get paid. It's I mean, you know, listen, we've seen Gary do this stuff for 30 years now. We know what the game is. We understand what it is, and this is how it works. And listen, there's nothing Bettman loves to do more than to break down the other side in a labor negotiation. Well, he loves it more than anything. And to be able to get one over on Marty Walsh, who was coming out of the Biden administration, you know, big labor bigwig. Boy, he'd love to get a win on him right off the bat and kind of get him under
his home court. This is like his home pickleball court.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Well, and don't forget, the PA plays this game too. You know, whatever the league wants to do, the PA is going to say, well, yeah, go ahead and do it, but
we
want. You know, you got to give up something to get something. That's the way we play these negotiations, and this, you know, goes back to, you know, long before Donald Fear. You know, that's the way they did it, and that's their tradition. And so, for sure, that's how the game is played.
Can I discuss something that wasn't discussed at the GM meetings, but I'm really ticked off about? So, because I talked to two different GMs about this today, and I said, so did you guys get around to talking about the issue of, you know, and this is a rules committee thing, you know, of course, but it's something that, you know, usually GM, some of the rules committee things start at GM meetings, but I said that the concept of, you know, if a goal is scored late in a game or in a playoff game or anything like that, and it's questionable offsides or whatever, and a coach challenges because he thinks it was questionable or it thinks there's interference, and he loses, he gets penalized. So you not only have the goal against, but now you're down. So that stops teams from challenging in late parts of the game. And I said, why aren't we like the NFL where the last 5 minutes of a game, or the last whatever minutes of a game in the playoffs is all goals are reviewed in a certain way? I mean, and I said this is going to bite them so badly at some point, and it already has. There already have been instances where it has, but it's going to come back and haunt them because, I mean, the refs don't. Some things are happening so fast the refs can't necessarily see it, so they don't really know. They make their call based on what they saw, but they're going to those. I've talked to them. They're going to look at the review and just as, you know, eagerly as we are. You know, they don't know, and so these refs are sitting there, and a coach has to make that call. Like, your team is just, say a team just took a 3-2 lead on you, or a team just tied you at 2-2. You've got to challenge that. You're in a playoff game, right? You got to challenge it if it's close. If you lose, you're done. It just ends.
But it depends on your video guy. That's how you're going to be a pass or a fail. But why is it the coach's job to get it right? That's my question.
Well, but just Eklund, this goes right into the heart of the entire argument on this year's GM's meeting, which is, you know, the idea of more review.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to get it right, but the problem they're having is, you know, coaches' challenges take time, and what ends up happening is you end up robbing momentum, not just for the fan, but for the teams as well. You know, it takes time to review it. So, you know, to me, there seems, look, I do buy into, Coley Campbell says a lot of things, but one of the things he does say that I know from just having covered the league for entire long, you know, you don't change these rules in a vacuum. as he likes to say, there are unintended consequences. We have seen it many, many, many times.
Well, let's debate one of them on here, because I had a heated debate on Sirius about it, and that was basically the over the glass. My feeling was, especially in the playoffs, I think it happens, and I spoke to a ref about it yesterday, and he agreed, around 3 times, maybe 4 times a game in the playoffs. When guys
they actually have, I think it was 100 times. They have all the statistics. 3 times they got it completely wrong.
No, but I'm not even caring about that. I don't want them to review it at all because, again, I don't want them to be robbed. I don't want the time being taken away from the game.
Right.
I don't think it's worth it, and I don't know what everybody else thinks here, but I gotta, I was on the end of not being popular with this on Sirius because everybody's like, well, we got to get it right, and it's like, you know what?
No, you're right, Rich. I mean, I agree. Let that go. I mean, just that's not getting it right. Getting it right to me is that goalie interference or not? That's like another. That's where it gets serious because
it's not going to help you though. Review is not going to help you on goalie interference, because it's still a judgment call.
No, but they still I've seen we've seen goalie interference overturned.
I'll give you a perfect example. Last night in the New Jersey Tampa Bay game, Jersey was going up 2-0. I think it was Thomas Tatar was pushed into the crease by Braden Point.
Yeah.
Cooper did the video review and they found that it was goalie interference. Sure, it was goalie interference because the Tampa Bay player pushed the guy into his own goaltender, but they didn't take that into consideration. So, I mean, I don't know. A lot of those things are
they usually do.
It's still a judgment though.
All the time.
Yeah.
We won't all agree. We can have reviews and watch them, and we're just not going to still agree. Like, and same thing on kicking motion. Like, I don't know why everybody thinks if you check, if we take away the distinct kicking motion, it's going to make it better because it's still subjective. It's still
always going to be subjective. That's
and the same thing is true on goalie interference. Unless you allow
Joe, unless you allow Pele, unless you allow guys just to like kick willy-nilly and just
The thing with the kicking motion thing that gets me is that, you can pull out 2 different rules in the rule book that say the exact opposite thing. You could pull out rule 30, whatever, that says, if it is, as long as it's not a distinct kicking motion, it's a goal off the skate. But then you go into rule 70 something or whatever, and it says any puck directed into the net by any part that's not the stick is disallowed. And it's like, well, which is it, guys? Which part of the rule book are we memorizing today?
I think a statistic that would help is if they actually sort of kept track of the number of goals that are sort of kicked in to see, like how, what we would, if we did just say, look, if it goes off you, whether you kick it or you don't, it's a goal. Like what?
Just to finish on my point for a second, I think you're putting coaches into like this no-win situation in that situation because it's like you could literally blow the game by challenging.
Yeah, because if you lose, it's a power play. Yeah.
So that to me is completely absurd when it's so close to the judgment call. We should look at it.
I think you're right, Eklund, but they are kind of circling around that in their discussion about all these different rules because one of the things, and I saw Chris Johnson had the best reporting on what they're actually suggesting, which is that you would have they would wear this watch-like device. And basically the idea would be, and the onus would no longer be on the coaches on these rules, and that the situation room had the power to just buzz the referee and say, you missed that call on the high stick.
Perfect.
Because they can't review. There's 700 high sticking calls.
No.
That's too many. It's too many reviews. But if there was an obvious one that they could see right away, they could just buzz the guy, and he could then wave it off on a situation room, overrule. Like, to me, that seems like a good.
Seems like great. It's using technology the proper way.
And regardless of when it is.
To me, the one that it's goals are what really matter. Like high sticking hits the glass, it's all this stuff is fine.
No, that's true. And what I was going to say, so for goaltender interference, one way to really help cure it is, how about it's a penalty if the opposing guy knocks a player into the goalie? How about that? It's a penalty, no matter what, every time.
I mean, it technically is interference.
Right.
It's always.
I'll say this. I got really bent out of shape seeing that they wanted to possibly add puck over glass as a review because puck over glass was supposed to be their solution to not calling any other penalties ever in games because it's like, well, it's automatic. It's immediately 2 minutes for doing it. And then I was at 2 straight home games of the Sabres in which puck went over the glass very clearly. And they said, no, not a penalty this time. And it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we punishing this play that now suddenly referees are like, well, no, we don't see it that way.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's puck over the glass unless it's shot over the bench. Then it's not puck over the glass.
Right.
Unless
there is that corner right before the netting is
right,
and that has now become like the ground of what Joe's talking about. Like if it's close to that, they're like, oh no, hold on.
But battleground states.
I said to you, Russ, unless the NHL is prepared to use the technology that like tennis uses to determine whether the ball is in or not, and they can determine whether the puck went out of the rink that way.
Yeah, they're not going to do it. They're
not going to do that because it would cost too much money and it takes too much time.
Also, that technology has to be interpreted by humans as well. They use it in English Premier League soccer, and still it takes somebody to look at it and go, right. Yeah, I think that's actually offside, and it's sometimes it's not.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. One group of people that I don't understand is the group that's saying we ought to get rid of the over the glass rule. They have forgotten that hockey used to be like 7-year-old soccer. You watch 7-year-old soccer and everybody's yelling, "Kick it out of bounds!" Well, that's what NHL players were doing. Anytime there was pressure.
I remember being taught as a goalie if you were in trouble to flick the puck over the glass.
Yeah, just flip that puck. Out I used to hate that.
Remember, at a certain point, it was subjective because it was like, well, did he mean to shoot her over the glass?
Well,
or did he not?
Now
that's what it's supposed to be now. But then they supposedly are like, well, no, all of it is bad. And
I want to nominate. I don't know who it is, but I want to nominate for my hero of the week.
All right.
The guy who was the GM who, when they were discussing the idea of clean hits resulting in fights, which I believe is a problem, that, I think it's discouraging hitting because now if you lay out a guy, you got to fight because everybody's on you.
Right.
And, they want to eliminate that. And they were talking about added rules. Mm-hmm. And somebody at some point said, wait a minute. There's rule already on the books. It's called the instigator penalty.
Right.
Bingo.
Just call that to the.
And you know what? They called one in the Flyers game, and that's the first time I'd seen it called, and I remember writing it in like a decade.
Yeah, no. I mean,
it's that's the easiest call to make of all these things.
Absolutely.
Some guy jumps in and grabs and starts punching. Yeah, see ya.
Yeah, it happened in the Toronto-Vancouver game. Tyler Myers hits John Tavares up high. Jake McCabe goes at Myers and gets into a fight. He lost it, but Myers is a bigger dude. And what happened? McCabe got a 2, a 5, and a 10. Just call that. It's there.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It is interesting though. Did you see the stats? I love when they have these meetings because some crazy stats come out. The number of fights, we had 271 fights this season thus far. What percentage of them resulted in teammates coming to the defense of a player who had been body checked? Does anyone have any idea? Did you read this statistic?
I didn't read it, but I'd say at least 40%.
That's almost right on. 36.9% of all of our fights result from somebody going to the aid of a teammate who has just been body checked.
Yep.
And one of the things everyone's concerned about is that we're losing the art of the body checks. Well, it's so discouraging when you lay a legal check on a guy and there's 14 guys coming after you, because you laid out somebody that they deem to be important, which is anybody on their team, so.
Right. Absolutely.
There you go.
It's, I mean, I get it. You want to stick up for your teammates. That's what everybody should be doing. But at the same point, if you're putting your team down a man for 2 minutes and then you're sitting out for the next 15, that's pretty good.
I heard Mike Rupp talking about this though on XM. I thought he was really good. Right, Rupp was talking about this, and he said, here's the thing about that. He says as a player, things are happening really fast, and you don't in your head, you're not reacting to whether it's dirty or not. You're reacting to whether it's big or not. He says he says what you hear is if you hear big hits. That was a big check. You hear the sound of it. That was big. He's like, and you don't necessarily know because you're on the ice. You're just not even looking at it, but you hear how big it is, and you see you see the aftermath of it. And he said he was always reacting to how big and not how dirty it was. I thought that was.
Well, I mean, I don't. don't doubt that they're sincere in the idea that they just think their teammate shouldn't be hit like that. But that's not how the game is supposed to be played. So
exactly.
I think you should have to pay a price for that. If you want to go ahead and do it, do it. There's no reason you can't go and defend your teammate, but you're going to have to pay for it.
I remember the days when, in Philadelphia at least, because that was, that was the way the Flyers used to play back in the days when the instigator penalty, we were okay with instigator penalties. That was us, like, yeah, take that penalty. That's okay. That was like a badge of honor. Like, go ahead and take that penalty. We'll take that penalty all day long because you're defending that's the way it was viewed. At least I remember never being mad. You were never mad at a player for taking an instigator penalty.
Yeah. Well, Mickey Redmond says on Detroit television that in the old days when you got caught with your head down, the guys on your own bench would give it to you, like, "Hey, you dummy!
Yeah,
keep your head up."
Yeah, no, for sure.
Now, Joe, the news came down, I think it was early yesterday, regarding Andrei Svechnikov, and a lot of bad news for the Hurricanes because he tore his ACL. He's having surgery. He's out, obviously, the rest of the regular season and playoffs, probably out early next year based on the recovery time for an ACL tear. But in the here and the now, Carolina was one of the 5 or 6 teams, you thought had a really good chance in the East. And now you lose a guy like that, even though he's not the best player on the team, he's one of their better players, and how that might affect their chances of getting out of the East.
Yeah, I mean, you lose a guy of that caliber, it's going to be a blow. And I love the internet because you see insane takes like, well, this is what they get for not adding somebody at the deadline. It's like, well, they didn't need to, man. Right. You can't prepare for an epic disaster like that's kind of what this is right now. And
yeah,
to me, Carolina, they can survive without Svechnikov. What they need to do is figure out if they've got if their goaltenders can hold up, and
now you're going to get a dual problem for them that I'm going to be looking at Carolina now because of that. That's a dual problem for them.
Right. And for me, it's, I know Freddie Anderson's back and they love him, but he's also a UFA this summer, and, Antti Ranta, he's been good sometimes when he comes in, but, he gets hurt a lot too. But to me, it's, you get Kochetkov in there. That's a whole different team. And I think they can survive without Svechnikov. They have plenty of other guys, but you need Aho to really take another, to evolve a little bit more. You need Teravainen to be more consistent, and you need these guys to really just just pick up the pace and get a little bit more from everybody else, because that's a hard loss to take. And the East is going to be a meat grinder up top. It's going to be really brutal, and they to withstand that with everybody else that's involved, that's going to be tough.
I mean, Kev, Svechnikov was 3rd in scoring with 55 points. He's one of 3 on the Hurricanes with over 20 goals. Yeah, he's not irreplaceable, but
he's a matchup problem for other teams, though.
Right, he's a big, strong power forward, Kevin. That's why I think it's a problem for them.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of billed when he got drafted as kind of Ovechkin Jr., kind of a big, strong guy. And it maybe hasn't quite lived up to that, but he's been very, very good. My only concern from the Carolina perspective is they didn't think they had enough goals even with Svechnikov.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking around to try to add some more offense. So, that is going to be a problem. But, they were never going to win on the strength of offense. It's on the strength of that exceptional defense. It's just hard to find any room in their defensive zone. They're really hard to play against. And as long as their goaltending stands up, I agree, they still have a shot. But, that Metropolitan is really a talent-laden field, and you need everything going well. And now they've lost an important part. So I think this is as significant of an injury as you're going to find.
It is. But you're right about that. If the team can withstand it, I think it's them in some ways. But they do need goaltending, and right now I don't think that goaltending is. I think it's in their young goalie, not.
That's the only reason I thought it was going to be him before the season began, but it hasn't, and now they've sort of gone back to him, but they haven't. I think
they need to go back to him. They need to commit to rest like they do. Yeah, I mean the Metro is so weird. In fact, like New Jersey's catching. Looks like they could catch Carolina. Yeah, I just looked at the updated standings for my thing after games were put in last night, and it actually has Pittsburgh passing New Jersey and New Jersey going into the wild card. It's so crazy how, and I know that sounds absolutely bizarre.
That sounds.
I know, but New Jersey has a hellish schedule and a lot of games.
Well, okay, I'll just say this, Zach. If Tristan Jarry is going to give up 4 goals on 6 shots, I question whether Pittsburgh can make the playoffs.
No, they're making the playoffs.
I know they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm just saying he was horrible yesterday against Montreal.
If they make the playoffs and if they play Carolina, how are you predicting that series?
I'm taking Pittsburgh today. If that's the matchup today, I'm taking Pittsburgh.
You are.
Yeah,
I am too.
I said it on the radio yesterday.
I'll just say this after watching both games last night, and it's one game, it's not the season, but I'm just saying I'm looking at trends, Joe, and I see New Jersey, who is having a great year, and they may finish first in the Metro, but that situation that I spelled out with Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay got a shorthanded goal right after the no goal, and then took over and won that game 4-1. New Jersey is really good, but they're really young, and their goal. And I know that Vanacek is having a good year, but I still have questions about the goaltending, and I have questions about the core group of that team not being very experienced. Where as opposed to the Rangers, I know Russ has not been a fan of Patrick Kane in that addition, but I look at the Rangers and the depth that they have up front and Shesterkin in goal. I think the injury to Svechnikov opens the door for the Rangers. It
depends. Ryan Lindgren being this banged up and not being able to get back in the lineup is costly for them.
He's going to be back, but Joe,
I know, but how is he going to be back? That's the question.
Here's the thing about the Rangers, and there's 2 teams in my mind like that just like it doesn't matter where they finish in the playoffs, and that's Pittsburgh and Tampa, right? Like those 2 teams, wherever they finish, it doesn't matter. Like
I didn't realize we had 3 people on the panel named Joe, but go ahead.
So. No,
it's X show, man.
What do you mean? No, I'm sorry. I apologize, Joe. Go ahead.
No, listen, we're all fired up here, man. We're getting close to playoffs. It's great. Listen, Jersey to me is fascinating because they do have that youth, and there's going to be an experience there, and teams like Tampa are going to take advantage. But I don't know. The Rangers have flaws. Carolina's got an injury now, so we'll see how they hold up the rest of the way. But I don't know, man. The teams are too good. I think a lot of times talent can just get you there regardless. And listen, Lindgren. Lindgren's a big deal for them because he helps loosen Fox up on that attack for the Rangers. But man, oh man, I don't know. It's very hard for me to say I don't think the Devils have got it because talent can override a lot of the experience sometimes.
Sometimes, but not often. Playoff experience means something. I see Patrick Kane, and I agree with what you're saying, Russ. Like right now, he looks out of place. They're putting him on too many power plays. They mess up their power play.
Well, it's ice time. He's got to fit in the right way.
But there's a different Patrick Kane in the playoffs, and that there is.
That's what you're telling me that, but we don't know that because
we all watched him lift Stanley Cups. We know that that's the case.
Well, no, you don't, because this is an injured Patrick Kane. You don't. He's also many years from winning a Stanley Cup.
It's 8 years ago, Patrick Kane.
Right. I have one quick thing, guys, before we go, because it's a big debate going on my blog right now. And it's Wednesdays I like to do Who's Better, which goes back to old Hockey Digest days when who's better, this or that. I love that. I love the Hockey Digest so much. I collect them. Who's better? Who's the better duo in their prime? Crosby Malkin versus McDavid and Draisaitl.
Crosby Malkin because they won cups.
All right, Joe.
Just raw point production. It's
just who was better in their prime as a combo.
I mean, what are you saying though? Playing together or a 1-2?
No, just the most. I was trying to think of the most powerful center combos. Like I think Gretzky, Messier.
Yeah, but Draisaitl plays on McDavid's wing most of the time.
He does, but he's still.
Yeah, I got to side Crosby Malkin on that one just because they were definitively 2 centers controlling.
Yeah, I don't even think it's close. I think it's Crosby Malkin just in terms of dominance, the success they've had, and nothing against McDavid Draisaitl because they're unbelievable. But it's not even. I don't think that's a close call.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh actually built a team around those players. You know, they had a first overall pick in Fleury. They had Letang. They had Jordan Stahl for a time. That's the problem with the Edmonton Oilers. The team that they've built around those two guys has been most of the time been crap. And then you know now
not anymore.
Well, no, but I think they've added pieces. Kane is a good player. Nugent Hopkins is good. They've added some defensemen. They still don't have the goaltending. You know, they're a better team. They're just not a great team. And Pittsburgh, you know, won what 3 Stanley Cups with those guys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, but check out the Twitter poll I did. Well, it's actually pretty close right now. It's interesting because when I first started out this Twitter poll, when I first saw like the first 100 or so votes before the show, McDavid and Draisaitl were like 70%, but now
it's recency bias, Zach. That's what
yeah,
I know.
for sure.
Now it's actually incredibly close. With 1,300 votes, McDavid and Draisaitl are 51.3, and Crosby and Malkin are 48.7.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
really
you're talking about the guy who's going to win the scoring race by what 40 points, and is going to win the Hart going away. Russ,
you all agree they don't touch? None of these guys touch Gretzky, Messier.
No, they don't touch him. No.
Russ, you had an interesting.
Let me make another suggestion. Yzerman Fedorov.
Good, Mike. Go, Joe, please.
No, I was going to say
Yzerman
Fedorov is a
Yzerman Fedorov.
Yeah, I mean they're up there, but I wouldn't put them with
right.
Where are they with Crosby, Malkin, McDavid, Draisaitl? Kev?
Below them.
Below them, still, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Russ, you had an interesting observation on a goalie from last night.
Tell me, because I forget.
Vegas goaltender.
Oh, yeah, Jonathan Quick. So I watched the game against the Flyers, and I'm there live. And while Quick can make the amazing save, the problem with Quick now is that still weird butterfly scrambly thing that he does. He doesn't have the same speed that he used to. So his rebound control is a little bit off. There was a play yesterday with Morgan Frost where you could clearly see as a goalie that third goal the Flyers got. I knew exactly where Frost was going to go with the puck. Quick is following him and inexplicably goes down, and then Frost goes high. And it made no sense. He went down way before Frost was even intending to shoot. And I'm sure you looked at that, Eck. And that's
I saw that. And, but this is the other thing about that play. And when watching Quick last night, you got to realize that Quick is not the easiest goalie to be a defenseman.
No, I get that. I understand
and I think that his style is so weird and different. And the Kings players were so used to it that it helped. Like this trying for the Vegas defenseman to figure out that style so quickly is a big call. That's a tough.
I just think his over exaggerated movements he used to get away with, it would scare the hell out of me if that were a team watching him in the playoffs.
I just think that when he almost stole the Edmonton series last year, I think he's going to be ridiculous in the play. He's another playoff guy with a level. And I think this is and now with a vendetta too. And if it gets to be LA, oh my gosh.
Yeah, if it's LA, he could win that series. I get that, but I don't think I'd pick him anything more than that. That's all I'm saying.
Joe, I wanted to ask you because we've started to see some of the players, either undrafted or drafted college players, sign with their respective teams. I know the Leafs signed Ryan Taverberg. Jaden Struble was signed by Montreal. The talk now is, Devin Levi hasn't signed yet. What is going on with that, and what are the Sabres putting the full court press on him?
No, I patience, I think is the key there.
Is it true that he sells cartoon balloons in town?
That I don't know.
Okay, I was just checking.
Okay. No, it'll get done. The Levy thing will get done because
Levy,
Levi, Levi. It's all.
You say tomato, I say tomato.
It's and tomato. It's 1,000 different pronunciations. No, he'll get done. That'll get done. I think if there's negotiation going on, it's with Comrie being out now. It's whether or not to burn that first year by having him play a game in Buffalo, which would make things really, 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 really interesting if he comes up and plays lights out. But I think the plan is to get him signed, get him in Rochester, get him playing games there right away, and start thinking about the future with him and where he'll fit in the future. Obviously, they want him to be the guy in Buffalo. That's what the hope is. But let's see how that difficulty changes between NCAA and AHL and the NHL first.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know that I know Matthew Nyes won Big Ten Player of the Year. I think it was yesterday, and I heard some people in Toronto say, "Yeah, he wasn't even the best player on his line."
No, he wasn't.
Logan Cooley or Luke Snuggerud were better, and that. But I think that's a product of the fact that he's a sophomore and the other guys are junior or are freshmen, and maybe that was the reason why. And he's going to the NHL, and those guys are probably not going to go till next year. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a Hobie top 10 finalist, which is great. I mean, that's what you love to see. But so are Cooley. So is Cooley.
Yeah.
So is Levi. So is just a lot of the names we've been talking about all year in college hockey.
Yeah. Well, he shall be Levi.
Yes. I believe that's going to be the pronunciation.
It's got to be. It's got to be. That'll be. It'll be a good thing, as they say in the song. So before we go, if you guys are looking to make money tonight, there's still only 4 games on tap. So here's our predictions. I'm going to say it on here. It's, something's going to break this. Something is going to do it. This will probably be it. And Mike doesn't want to hear it because the New York Islanders winning at Anaheim, Buffalo winning at Washington, Toronto defeating Colorado at home, and St. Louis defeating Minnesota at home. Those are the 4 games tonight. So, and a couple weird ones there. I mean, Minnesota, St. Louis is definitely a weird one. Mm-hmm. Minnesota's been playing out of their minds. But yeah, so that there's
Buffalo should be favored over Washington because Washington played in New York last night.
Yeah,
They'll be playing Charlie Lindgren in goal. So, but you never know with the Sabres. They play one game great against Toronto, and so
yeah, you don't know. But it's gonna be so. And the standings are currently, I'll throw them up here for you guys. Kind of fun. Check out. We can look at it, and then we'll get out of here. But yeah, it's let's share the screen here. Sharing my screen now. Here it comes. All right, it's right here. Cool.
I say, Eck, with your predictive stuff, you're batting 75%. That's pretty good.
Isn't that nuts?
That's pretty impressive.
It's funny. It's fun for my wife and I because she's not really into hockey too much, but she helped me do this thing. So she's asking, "How are we doing tonight?" Because we're suddenly it's crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's the current standings as they would project out. So you see the Penguins, passing, like I said, passing the Devils. I don't know if it'll say that way, but also the other thing really interesting here is Florida Buffalo 1 point. There's only 1 point difference there. The Buffalo still has a shot, by far. They're still very much in it. They
got through the really beefy part of the hard part of the schedule this past week. So
they did. We talked about that last week, and they managed it. They didn't thrive, but they got through it.
They didn't manage it too well. They played well, but they came up on the short end.
Yeah, for sure. And then down here, Winnipeg, Seattle. But so right now, Seattle's ahead by 1 point on Nashville, by 2 points on Calgary, and Vancouver, who's surging lately. So that also plays into it. So there we go. We'll see what happens tonight, though. Remember, folks, without the buzz. Thanks, Joe, for joining us. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will all talk to you tomorrow. Great to be back, guys.